Did you know that in Innistrad Midnight Hunt, the basic lands had a pretty simple but thematic tie-in? In each of the lands released in this set, there was a figure going on a midnight hunt in the artwork. Like these full art lands, illustrated by Dan Mumford, this figure walking in the background of this plains, looking over the water in this island, the two hunched figures with weapons in this swamp, the man walking this path in the mountain, and this man walking into the light in this forest. But it extends into the other lands that were released in this set as well, with this man holding a torch in this island, the lone bird perched in this forest, this plains that has a scarecrow presumably coming to life, the crow standing over some carrion, and these wolves hunting in the background of this forest. When you take the time out to look, the styling for Magic the Gathering art never ceases to impress. Merch. Like, comment, subscribe. Hello, welcome back to Basics, episode number 28, a show where I take EDH commanders and try to find the perfect basic lands to fit them. I love seeing someone sit down to some beautiful basic lands, but something I love even more is seeing how well those lands match their commanders. One quick note before we begin. I like to give the artists credit for their artworks, but I may not pronounce the names perfectly. I'll try my best, but please forgive me and correct me if that ever happens. First up, we've got Lonis Cryptozoologist from Modern Horizons 2. Despite Lonis' character being from Ravnica, the bright blues and the swirling shapes of the structures behind him, and the muted color palette accented by the bright blues, seem to give off a very futuristic vibe to me, and it was a lot of fun finding basic lands that fit that cryptic undercity theme that he exemplifies. I was actually able to find 5 different pairings for your review. Take a look at this awesome forest illustrated by Adam Paquette from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, and coupling it with this island from Strixhaven, illustrated by Lucas Staniek, that does a great job of capturing the magical and sloping architecture that you see in Lonis' artwork, fitting the general themes of magic interlaced with city life. For a second pairing, I wanted to try to consider the idea of the clues to fit his gameplay. So, take a look at this beautiful forest illustrated by Seb McKinnon from Dominaria United, and pairing it with this strange warped island illustrated by Lucas Graciano from Hour of Devastation, that I think goes very underappreciated in today's Commander decks. This pairing was cool because of how strange and complex it looks, as though you're seeking out clues alongside Lonis as you play. For a third pairing, take a look at this set of full art lands from Zendikar Rising. Take a look at this island illustrated by Anna Steinbauer from Zendikar Rising, and coupling it with this forest from the same set illustrated by Sam Burley. I loved this pairing because it was full art, and both lands matched that grayish-blue atmospheric effect that is in the background of Lonis' artwork, and the sloping nature of the forest alongside the ancient ruins in the island matches his aesthetic very well. And for a fourth pairing, I wanted to go even more futuristic and show off this island from Streets of New Capenna, illustrated by Sam Burley, that I think matches the magical city theme, and combining it with this forest from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, illustrated by Adam Paquette, that looks absolutely stunning. I liked this pairing the most out of the bunch, for the beauty of the specific lands, as well as how easily I could see Lonis as a character, blending in with the ideas shown in Streets of New Capenna and Kamigawa Neon Dynasty worlds. Second on the list, we've got Jaxis the Troublemaker from Streets of New Capenna as well. Looking at her artwork makes me wish that they were able to do more lore for the legendary creatures released in new Magic the Gathering sets. Her cold sneer and glowing eyes, alongside the ghostly figures of the creatures that she's summoning alongside her to fight, give a strong impression of a deeper story just waiting to be told. It was actually fairly difficult to find basic lands that matched her, because there wasn't much to go off of that could be matched in a basic land artwork. But the colors of deep red, yellow undertones, and gray smog were all great places to start. Take a look at this mountain from Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate that does a pretty good job of matching her unique color palette, and this mountain from Jumpstart illustrated by James Paik that highlights her bright red color and gives a feeling for the sorts of trouble that Jaxis gets up to. Or you could go with this awesome mountain from War for the Spark, illustrated by Titus Lunter, that matches the color and urban aesthetic almost perfectly. Or you could go the lore route and focus on this mountain from Streets of New Capenna, illustrated by Christian Dimitrov, which is the closest that I could come thematically while still remaining true to her artwork. Or you could focus on her red eyes and devilish appearance of the creatures that she's summoning, and go with this mountain from Jumpstart, illustrated by Jonas Deroe, that does a great job of giving that feeling off in-game. Ultimately, I think my favorite one of the bunch was the mountain from War for the Spark, which matched color-wise, and the demon face mountain from Jumpstart that I think does a great job of continuing the feeling in the artwork of Jaxis into your basic lands. Third on the list, we've got another monocolored commander. It's Sram, Senior Edificer from Kaladesh. Sram's artwork is extremely detailed, with beautiful gold filigree and complex steampunk mechanical imagery dominating the frame and his person. The thing that confused me was that the basic planes in the Kaladesh sets had too much green in them, with wispy clouds and none of the artificial styling that is all over in this artwork. So in light of that fact, I had to go to other planes to find matching basics. And I think I found it, starting with this planes from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, illustrated by Adam Paquette, that gives off the gold color in the energy beams powering the sand flats. Or you could choose this absolutely gorgeous planes, illustrated by James Payek from the Selesnya Ravnica Weekend promo cards, which I think matches the color and the styling to a T. Or, for a more budget option, you could choose this planes, illustrated by Titus Lunter, and focusing on that great color alongside the buildings. For his alternate artwork, it's actually very similar, and the previous basics that we've chosen would do nicely, but I wanted to try to emphasize as much of that golden color as well as the dark tones as I could. So take a look at this planes illustrated by Richard Wright from Ravnica Allegiance that I think really emphasizes that contrast, as well as this planes from Strixhaven illustrated by Titus Lunter that I think does the same. I was very pleased to be able to find this many planes in such a nuanced aesthetic style and from so many different areas of Magic the Gathering history. Fourth up, we've got a very underappreciated artifact commander. It's Alibou, Ancient Witness from Strixhaven. The thing that stood out to me was the depth of color, as well as the strong purple hue, which made the basic land choices really pop when compared to their more traditional counterparts. Take a look at this planes from Theros Beyond Death, illustrated by Sam Burley, and coupling it with this mountain from the same set and artist. This pairing was quite the treat because I feel like it matches every note that is visible on Alibou. The themes of the ancient ruins and that deep violet hue all continue through the cards to make one seamless artwork that I think looks very striking to me. For a more simpler interpretation, take a look at this planes illustrated by Mark Poole from Commander 2016, as well as this blue-inspired mountain illustrated by Jesper Icing that when compiled together really extends the color, even though they don't necessarily line up thematically. However, that got me going to a line of ancient ruins for choices for these next pairings of basics of Alibou. Take a look at this planes illustrated by Kev Walker that has a statue submerged in a hill, and this mountain also illustrated by Kev Walker, but showing the remains of Naktamun from Hour of Devastation. I thought this was a great pairing, and worth mentioning, even though it sacrifices some of its color styling for favor of thematic tie-ins, which is still enjoyable to see in game. But in light of that, I wanted to try another pairing down that same line of thinking, one that both captures the color and the styling of Alibou. Take a look at the violet hues present in this mountain from the 2020 promo packs, illustrated by Sam Burley, and coupling it with this very appropriate planes from Strixhaven, illustrated by Jonas DeRoe, that matches lore-wise. I loved the mountain in this, specifically because of how difficult it is to use under most circumstances, but how striking it looks in this specific pairing. But for a final one, I wanted to go a tad bit deeper. While there is that deep purple tone in Alibou that draws your eye, the thing that actually keeps you in focus is the brass color contrasted against the purple. So take a look at these two lands that I think do just that in their own respective ways. This plains illustrated by John Avon from Return to Ravnica, and this beautiful mountain illustrated also by John Avon from the same set. This was a great chance to see how closely these lands match up from a color perspective, and would look great in foil as well. And last on the list, we've got a very fun one. Smooth requested that I try Timmy Power Gamer from Unsanctioned. For those that don't know, the concept of Timmy is a categorizing reference to the types of players that would play Magic the Gathering, and it's more or less evident in his artwork. His silly costume and confident smile show off a great example of a person who doesn't know much about the nuances of the game and doesn't even want to know. Timmy is just there to play big and splashy spells, simply because they look cool, and not necessarily because of how competitively viable they are or could be. So, with that in mind, I have quite the gamut of styles to choose from, starting with color matching. This forest from Double Masters, this forest from Unstable, this forest from Plane Chase, and this forest from Return to Ravnica, all illustrated by John Avon, all do excellent jobs of showing off that bright green color, and really matching the visual image of Timmy Power Gamer, and would be a very noticeable choice for how deliberately you were matching them up. However, if you wanted to try to lean down the more comedic route that playing with unset cards always brings, you could try this full-text Secret Lair forest that explains the entire rules text of forests in general, which is bound to get some attention. Or you could really lean into the gag and use cards from a whole different set entirely, like these 3D modeled grass energies from Pokemon, illustrated by Keiji Kinebushi, which I think would be a hilarious use for a commander like this one, really driving home the point that you are an unfocused and uncaring player, and because Pokemon and Magic the Gathering cards are the same size physically, and have the same degree of rounded corners, they would work terrifically in sleeves together, despite being entirely different card games. But there you have it, 5 more commanders sorted for which basic lands I think match them best. But I want to see what you think. Tell me which commanders you'd like me to try and pick out basic lands for. Comment below, and let me know, and have a great day.